We're going to start with some simple lips with the mouth closed. So if you just draw a line straight across, that's going to be our starting point. When you draw lips, you don't necessarily need to worry about the outline of the lips as much as you want to focus on the line in between the lips, or where the lips meet. So I'm going to curve it up a little bit on each side. That's going to be kind of the crease of your lips. It's going to go up just a little bit, down, back up. And this is general. We're not looking at a reference photo. We're just going to do this from memory. So that's the basic crease in between your lips. When you're doing the outline, unless it's a woman wearing very thick lipstick or something, the outline is not super important. The main part you want to get is this line in the center. Now, what I like to do, and everybody does this their own way, but basically, I like to draw a couple little jelly beans over here like this, right in the center. And that's just a visual reference. Jelly beans or eggs or something, I don't know what you want to call them. But that's just a general reference for kind of the meaty part of the lips, and to create this little V right here. That's a Cupid's bow. That's that little crease in your lips. And then we could wrap it around. Now notice it's going to curve this way down towards the edge, and then kind of curve like that. And everybody has different shaped lips, so I don't want people people harass me. Oh, that's not what mine look like, or whatever. This is just a generic how-to with shading. Not everybody's lips are going to look like this. Now, for this bottom part, what I like to do is this big, thick, the bottom lip, not all the time, but a lot of times, is going to be thicker than the top. So I draw this big jelly bean like that. That's going to be the main kind of meaty part of the lip, if that makes sense. And then we'll continue this line up this way, but notice the bottom lip is not going to connect, at least not yet, all the way to the edge, or all the way to the crease here. So now I'm using the side of my pencil. This is an HB pencil. And I use this side because it's going to, instead of having a line like this, you can see it's much finer and sharper. So if you use the side, it's going to be easier to blend together, and it's softer. So I'm going to use that all over my upper lip. And we're going to do multiple layers of this. And hopefully create some realistic lips. And then on the outside here, kind of by the creases, I'm going to go a little bit darker. And you notice I'm not really pushing hard on the outside and the outline of the lips. That's the number one thing I would say for realism, is no matter how much detail you put into your drawing, if you do a hard outline, it's going to make it look a little bit cartoony. So in this case, we're not going to worry about putting that hard outline. It will have a really dark line right here where the lips meet, though. And this guy right here, this is called a blending stump. All it is paper wound up really tight. There's tons of different sizes of these. I got a whole jar full of them. These are called blending stumps, or tortillions. But all I'm using, instead of using my finger like maybe you saw people do in art class or whatever, or a tissue, I'm just using one of these blending stumps. And you can see how it's grainy in the paper. You can see the white kind of poking through. What I'm doing now is small, tiny little circles. And you can see how you don't see the little grainy white spots anymore. That's because imagine the paper has teeth, or the texture of the paper. I am smashing in or pushing in all of the graphite into the teeth of the paper. And this is how you would just kind of make it look a little bit smoother and a little bit more, in my opinion, finished. And I like to use just small little circles. And we're going to blend that all in. You could, if you don't have one of these, you could use a Q-tip, or you could even use tissue paper, or if you really wanted to, your finger. The only reason I don't like to use my finger is, like I mentioned earlier, I don't like my hands to be dirty. But also, your finger has oil on them, and when you start to use your finger, it can mess up your drawing. It's going to transfer all the oil to your paper and could mess it up in the long run. So I don't like to use my paper or my finger for it. So there is our this is B. This is our B pencil, your number 2 pencil. That's our first layer. Now I'm going to jump to, and I'm going to erase this just a little bit. I forgot to talk about erasers. The main thing about erasers is don't use your eraser on your number 2 pencil. You can see this one, see how it's white? It looks like a mechanical pencil eraser. That's exactly what it is. It's an elastomer eraser, or a plastic eraser is what they call them, or just a white eraser. And this is the same thing, just a fine tip. It's called a mono 0. This time I'm going to switch back to my 2H pencil because I want it to be lighter, because I want that upper lip to be darker. And we're going to do a few layers of shading. But you can see I'm using the side of my pencil to add all of that shading. There's not much to it yet. And then I don't want to use the same blending stuff. You can see how dirty it is up here. And people always ask me, well, what do you do if it's super dirty? You can scratch it on sandpaper. That's typically what I do. Or you can grab an X-Acto knife and just carve it off. Okay, you can see small little circles. And that was a 2H pencil, so it was very hard. The harder the pencil, the lighter it's going to draw. The softer the pencil, the darker it's going to draw. And when I'm typically when I'm trying to go over shading, I go over 3 values. The white of the paper, that's going to be your highlights. Your dark or your midtones, where these are kind of your midtones. It should just be 1, but we'll say this is our midtones. And then your dark shadows, like this upper lip. We'll say that's going to be our dark shadows. So all you need to worry about is 3 values: your highlights, which is the white of the paper, your midtones, and then your dark shadows. Your midtones, so if you're looking at my arm here, here's my midtones. This over here is going to be the shadows. And then maybe, I don't know, maybe you could see the little, my hairy arm. Those are the hair would be maybe the highlights. But 3 values. And then obviously out of those 3 values, you can blend them all together and make 100 or 1,000 values. But if you think of it with just 3 values, it makes it much easier. The highlights, your midtones, and your shadows. We've got the basics down. We're just going to keep adding layers of, now we're going to go a little bit darker. Make sure you have a nice sharp pencil for this. So I'm jumping over to, this is my darkest pencil that I've got in this set, which is an 8B. So what I'm going to do, you can see, when you have these really dark, it's really soft, but it makes a huge difference. Whenever I do some of these drawings on social media, where I've got like my midtones, and then all of a sudden I jump to those really dark shadows, and it all starts to come together like, oh my gosh, that's why I need these pencils. That is exactly why you need these pencils. And then you can just go and blend. I like to just blend a little bit over here on the edge. To make the kind of crease on your lips. Okay. Now I'm going to jump to my HB or a B pencil, your number 2 or whatever. And what I want to do here, I just want to demonstrate what contour lines are. Very lightly, I'm going to draw contour lines. And this is going to end up looking like a little earthworm. And I'm doing it lightly because I'm going to cover them here in a minute. But you can see, as I start to curve these lines more on the outside, it's creating the form of that lip, right? So now it's starting to make that lip look like it's protruding a little bit and make it look 3D a little bit. And then we'll go in the opposite direction on the other side. And this is the power of contour lines. We're not going to, like I said, we're going to go over them. Not quite yet, but we're going to go over them in a minute to cover most of that up. We want it very, very subtle when we get done. But I'm going to do the same thing on these upper lips. Very, very lightly. And you can see they change direction and they curve. Like that. You can barely notice. And I know you're probably squinting at the screen saying, I can't see it. And that's on purpose because I don't want you to see it too much. You want it to be very subtle. But this is just a little demonstration on how you can use contour lines to make your drawing look a little bit more realistic. The fun part now is if you have one of these erasers or any eraser, we're going to erase some highlights right here on that lower lip. And we kind of have these little gaps in between where you can maybe see some of those little contour lines. But the bottom lip, remember when we're looking at that profile, the bottom lip is going to be a little bit brighter or a little bit lighter than the upper lip. Now I'm just going to cover all of those contour lines that we just did. So you could barely see them. I'm even going to go over those little spots that we just erased. It's not a big deal because we can go back and erase a little bit more here and there. And then we'll go over with our B pencil again. Is this a B? That's not, yeah, that is a B. And I'm going to just darken up some more of those, kind of the little contour lines, the start of the contour lines on the bottom of the lip. And remember, it's going to be darker out here on the edge. And then you could go with that same erase. Actually, let's go back to our B pencil. A lot of times, shading is just a matter of dark and is just adding your really dark shadows. And the contrast here, is going to make a big difference. So I always say that you should never have any white on your paper. You should always have at least a little bit of gray, like here. That's at least a little bit of gray. Because when you start to, if you want a highlight, you can't draw a white highlight on white paper. So you have to have some contrast on your paper, like this light gray, so you can see the really bright highlights, like right here on the lips. And then what I'm doing here, I'm just making a shadow underneath the lip. I'm going to blend it with my blending stump. And what a lot of people do, or mistake people make, is they make the chin coming right out of the bottom of the lips. But you're going to have this little space in between the chin and the lip, something like that, and then your chin would go here. You're going to have that little shadow underneath the lip, something like that. Let me grab my Grab a bigger blending stump. And the cool thing about these blending stumps is, as I'm doing this, I'm loading up that blending stump full of graphite, almost like a paintbrush. And I could use that to blend all of my drawing. And then okay, so we've got the basic start of our lips. So now I'm going to go over to my 8B pencil. I'm just going to darken up that shadow underneath. And remember, I'm not worried about the outline of my lip. I don't need to draw an outline for it. I'm just drawing the shadow underneath. And then you can grab your blending stump. It's a layering game. You're going to go back and forth, layering. But now you can see how that bottom lip is starting to, you can kind of see the shadow underneath and starting to make it look a little bit more 3D. Now the last tip I'm going to go over for the closed lips is just erase a couple little highlights right here on the top. And then what I like to do, because I've already got this loaded up with graphite, I'm going to go and just blend a little bit. You can see it's not touching the bottom. What this is doing is creating right here. It's going to be a little bit lighter. That's reflective lighting, if that makes sense. And then add some more, or erase a little bit more for the highlights. But you can see these little guys right here. I think that's the key. That's what made my little lip drawing start to look a little bit more realistic. And then you could do maybe a little crease right here in the center. But I think the biggest difference is this little, you don't want the line going all the way over here. But these little lines, or these little shadows right here, with it a little bit lighter underneath, that creates that reflective lighting. And it makes a big difference.
Hey, I hope you're having a lot of fun and really enjoying the tutorial, but I wanted to remind you, if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell so you'll receive an alert every time I post a new video. And if you want to take your drawings to the next level, make sure to check out my Drawing Master course at www.iamshaneburke.com.
We're going to do a smiling mouth with the teeth showing. So I'm going to start with my number 2 pencil again, or sorry, my 2H pencil. I'm going to start with just a straight line across. We want it to be straight, but I'm going to curve this line a little bit, just a little bit. And that little straight line is going to give me a guideline. So now it's curved just a little. And remember, we don't want to focus on the outline of the lips being super dark. We want to focus on the separation of the lips. So what I'm going to do now is draw kind of that's going to be the big open smile mouth. And that little guideline was just to show that it's kind of curving just a little bit. So there's the basics. That's the basic start of it. And then, let's see, if we did that same little egg. Let's see, right here's the center. You don't necessarily have to draw that line if you don't want to, but just to capture center, and draw my little eggs, and then that little V right in the center, and then wrap around. And notice that it always curves up, depending on the angle, but in my drawings, it's always going to curve up over here on the side. See how it curves up there? Okay. So this is the most important part, or one of the most important parts. See, this is going to be the crease. It's going to kind of go up, down in the center, go up at an angle again, go straight across, and then over like that. Erase all these little guidelines that we started with. Okay, using that same principle, we want the upper lip to be darker than the bottom lip. So let's see, this mouth is going to be, that's going to be a big smile. And actually, I'm breaking my own rules here. We don't need that line to go all the way to the edge. So like that. And then now using the side of your pencil, this is going to be our 2H. Actually, let's switch to an HB. Your B or an HB. This is basically your number 2. We're going to start with the side of our pencil and just shade all of that in. The whole upper lip. Because again, that upper lip, based on the angle and it kind of folds in, so it's going to be in the shadows. And with our 3 value shading, lights, darks, and midtones, this will be, I guess it'll be in between. It'll be in between our midtones and our darks. But you can see over here on the edge, it's gonna be darker. And you grab your blending stump and smash all of that graphite into the tooth of the paper. And like I said, I like to use small little circles. And we're going to add more layers to all the shading. So if you see these little circles, it's okay. You know, you try to make it smooth and everything, but we're going to add multiple layers, so I don't have to worry too much yet. And then on the bottom, I'm going to go to my 2H pencil because I want it to be lighter. Using the side of my pencil. Because that bottom lip, especially right here, is going to be right in the sun or that light source. So I'm actually going to erase some of that. And right here, this would all be just as a reference. We're going to add more shading to it, but and then if you grab your blending stump, something that's not as dirty as the top, because you want it to be lighter. You could do with these different values with multiple layers, but I'm going to start with I'm going to use my other blending stump because it's not as dark. I didn't put as much graphite on it or blend it as much as we did with those darker values. This is definitely one of those trust the process type things. Okay. With my 2H pencil, we've got our basic shape. It doesn't look perfect yet. If you wanted to, we could go and smooth out the bottom part. We'll make it a little bit lighter or a little bit darker and a little bit finer with our, this is a 2H pencil, so it's not going to be much darker. But just to define that bottom lip a little bit better. or that upper lip a little bit better. The bottom of the upper lip, if that makes sense. Okay, what we're going to do now, I'm not going to attempt to draw all of the teeth. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the gums. And by drawing the gums of the teeth, it's going to create the teeth. So I start with this little V. See how it's curved this way? That's a gum in between the teeth. Maybe right around here. That's the bottom of your two front teeth, or of their two front teeth. And what we're going to do, because the teeth are white, we're going to draw the contrasting shading or shadows and by contrast, it will create the shape of the teeth. So we've got the gums here. We'll bring it down. Like that. We've got another one. And as they start to come off towards the edge of the mouth, these little arches, or these gum lines, are going to get thinner and thinner as it wraps around the side of the jaw. See how they're getting smaller? And then eventually we'll just end it right here. And over here it's just going to be shaded in dark. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teeth showing in the front. So hopefully we can now match the same. And I know it may be hard to see right now. People, a lot of times when I do this on these little 30-second or minute-long tutorials, they only see these little spikes and they're like, what? It looks like vampire teeth or something. But it'll make sense in a minute. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so over here, you can see they're getting smaller and smaller. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got it. Okay. So now over here, this is going to be the shadow, just where the teeth are kind of wrapping around, curving around the side of the jaw. Okay, so now it looks maybe funny. Maybe you see it, maybe you don't. But what I'm going to do now is draw the bottom of the teeth. Like this, and then this one I think right here is probably the canine. It's going to curve a little bit. Like that. And I'm just going to shade in between. This isn't a really dark pencil. This is still my 2H pencil, so it's going to be pretty light. But I'm just shading in right now so you can hopefully start to see the silhouette of the teeth. I always talk about, you don't necessarily want to draw the lines in between each tooth, like right here, 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 here. You will let the contrast and the shadow in between the teeth create the shape of the teeth. By drawing the shadows, it's going to create the shape of the teeth, if that makes sense. So I don't know if you can see it yet, but hopefully you can see those teeth. So what I'm going to do now is maybe controversial. I'm just going to make all the teeth gray. I'm going to make everything gray, just as using that the side of my blending stump. So now we've got a few layers. I know you probably feel like we just messed everything up, but I promise it's going to come together. Now I'm going to go to my really dark pencil, which is my 6B, or sorry, my 8B. And as long as it's nice and sharp, I'm going to thicken up that shadow underneath. And down here, that's going to be the bottom teeth. So we're not even to that point yet. Right now, we're just creating the basic shape using contrast to create the basic shape of the upper teeth. Now, in like anime or some cartoons, you wouldn't see any of those lines in between. Let me give you a quick little example. And this is just using contrast, and we're not worrying about, this is kind of the same principle. A lot of times it would just be just like that, and then you'd have a couple more, but you wouldn't really see the line in between each tooth. You might see the gum lines. I don't know if you could see that. Some people, it's like an optical illusion. But here would be the bottom lip, if that makes sense. And then it would be really dark over here, where the teeth wrap around that jawline, and you can't see them as they curve around. That's kind of what we're going for. But we're also going to make these teeth over here with that 2H pencil. They're in the shadow, so they're going to be pretty dark. And I know they look really dark right now, but when we start using our other pencils, it'll make a difference. I'm going to make it a little bit lighter here. And then now we'll go back to our 8B pencil and start adding our dark values that we were missing. We've got all of our midtones down. Now we're going to add our dark values. And over here, really dark as that tooth wraps around. I'm going to darken up those gums a little bit. And then for those bottom teeth, I'm going to go a little bit lower. Remember, a lot of this is erasing too, so we're going to erase some of those highlights. And then you can just put a little crease. You don't have to draw the lines in between each tooth. The only time I draw the lines in between each tooth is when they're out here on the edge. So we'll draw these. Maybe one here. But the rest of them, if you do see a line at all in between each tooth, it's going to be very, very subtle. Very light. Because if you do it too dark, it looks gap-toothed. And maybe they are gap-toothed, so if that's what you're trying to draw, that's fine. But, all right, let's go back. We'll add our lower teeth. And the lower teeth are smaller than the upper teeth. So they're not going to match. These little creases in between each tooth is not going to match. But then again, I want to use my blending stump. Nothing should be white on my paper. Nothing. Even the teeth. Unless it's a really, really bright highlight. And then you go afterwards and you can erase some little highlights on top. some in between. Okay. Now let's start adding some texture into the lips. It's darker up here on this top lip. Gonna be darker over here on the sides. And then what I like to do, the same way we did the top lips, or these lips up here, we're gonna draw these little contour lines. This is a 2H pencil, so it's my lightest pencil. It's my hardest pencil, but it's my lightest. And I'm just doing these little contour lines. And they're very subtle. You could probably barely see them, but they'll make a big difference. A little bit goes a long ways. You want them to be, when I've done this before, and some of my students, they make them way too dark. So you want to start subtle. Trust me, less is more. You want to barely see them. And this is just kind of a visual reference so you can see the direction and the form of the lips. Very subtle. Okay. We'll start doing the same thing here. One line straight down the center for the to find center, and then we'll start curving them to create the form. Remember, you don't want to go super dark. And we're going to smudge over this and blend over this and then erase, and most of this you're not going to see, but the little subtle contour lines that are left behind is going to make a big difference in your drawing. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to grab a blending stump. I'm going to try to smooth all that out so you can barely see it. Even right there in that little light spot that we started. Okay. Now I'm going to jump to, let's see, I'm going to jump to my B pencil. It's kind of our midtones. It's not super dark, not super light. I'm going to add that shadow underneath. And start to add that dark shadow, but remember, it's not going to go all the way up. We don't need that line to go all the way up. We don't need to outline it. Right now we're just drawing the shadow. And it's a shadow underneath the lip. So it's not just a shadow of the lip, it's a shadow underneath the lip. And then that would be your chin underneath. We'll play our layering game, going back, blending. And then let's see, from there we're going to go to our really dark pencil, our 8B, and hit those really dark shadows. And these really dark shadows, this is what really makes it start to pop out, because everything looked really gray washed before. This is what really makes a difference. And this is why I always say you really do need to have a few different pencils to get the look you're going for. I'm just going to go and outline that bottom lip a little bit more, or that upper lip. And this looks really grainy here. So I'm going to get, this is my B pencil. So I'm just going to touch it up a little bit, the gum lines. Maybe darken up those teeth on the outside. Okay. Something like that. Okay, now I am going to go and start, because this is a woman and she does have lipstick, so I'm going to, or gloss or something, lip gloss. So I'm going to darken up that outline just a little bit. And then down here on the bottom as well. Darker on the outside, where that little crease is. And then I'll start to blend it again. You can see, so those contour lines that we did, you can barely see them. That's how we want it. And then I'm gonna grab, let's see, our B pencil. And here was our little highlight. Now here's the fun part. We're going to darken up the bottom. But right here in the center, that's going to be our little highlight. I know we've gone over it a couple of times with our pencils and kind of covered it up. Or we're going to go over it again, covering some of those contour lines that we started with. We'll blend it all together. We'll even put a couple little dark spots in between. And then you can grab your eraser if you got one of these little fine tip erasers. Start adding some of those tiny little highlights. Now what I like to do at the end, kind of like we did here, we've got that reflective lighting on the bottom. And remember, if you want to draw realistic, like photorealistic, you need a photo to reference. So, and this is just from kind of muscle memory for me. But if you want to draw something photorealistic, you definitely need a reference photo. But for me, I just know out of memory that I'm going to have these little highlights right here on the top lip. Same way we did up there. And a little bit darker right here on what I call the meat of the lip. Maybe you've got this little crease. Something like that. And then I just know out of memory that you got these little shadows here. And if you shaded all over this upper lip, I'm using the side of my pencil just as a little demonstration, and I'm going to shade all of this. You're going to have right on top of the lips, you're going to have a little highlight. And you won't see that highlight if you didn't shade over here. So that's what I mean. There should be zero white on your paper except for those highlights. That would be your little Cupid's bow there. If that makes sense. And then you would even have a little bit darker. Oops, that's way too dark. Kind of blend that out a little bit. But it'd be brightest right here. Like that.
And that's it. Hopefully now you are a pro at drawing lips. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to see more, and check out my complete drawing course at www.iamshaneburke.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.